How you doing, guys, and welcome to this week's ToolBox TV. Now, this week is going to be a little bit longer than usual, but it comes to you compliments of a conversation that I had with Matt Fletcher on Facebook. And the crux of the conversation was that Matt had put a posting up stating that he had turned off one of his marketing pillars. He'd stopped doing leafleting because he'd gotten so busy. And my response to that was, as it would typically be, is, in my view, that's insanity. If you have a marketing pillar that's working for you, you don't turn it off just because you're getting busy. By turning it off, you're going to set yourself up for issues like dry spells. And we all know what that's like. You're busy, you've got lots of work coming in, lots of work coming in, you don't do any advertising, you don't do any promoting, you don't do any marketing, and then all of a sudden you look in the diary and you find that next week you've got no work, or the week down the line you've got no work, and then you start panicking again, so you start doing activities, and the marketing activities, advertising activities, you'll advertise just to get work. And you don't really have a sense of control over it. You don't really have any way to systemize or manage exactly what's happening in your business. So you do that feast and famine thing, that drought thing, so where you should continue marketing, you should continue using your marketing pillars and advertising activities that are working for you, the ones that are bringing in business for you. I mean, by all means, if a marketing pillar is not working for you, stop it. But if you find a marketing pillar that is working and it's bringing you in the type of work that you want, then you need to keep using it, even when you get busy. And that led us to the conversation, if you like. Well, how do you do that, James? And the bottom line is, guys, it's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. There's no magic pill. There's no magic cure. You can't just say on day one, I'm going to start doing this because that's how James said it's going to happen. Because on day one, you won't have started your marketing. But on day one, you won't have systems in place to handle this. What you need to do is build up your marketing, build up your pillars, build up your flow of customers into your funnel, and then you start to implement the things that I'm talking about. So let's go through it step by step. We're all familiar with the whole idea of a marketing funnel. And your marketing funnel is basically shaped something like that. You have customers or work coming in at the top, potential work coming in at the top. You squeeze them through, and out the other end, you should eventually get some work out of it. So there's three stages to the funnel, basically. And phase one is to find work. So when you're finding work, that's all of your marketing and advertising tactics. So if we work that out in terms of the S.P.A.R.K.S Blueprint, what we teach inside the toolbox, we have inside the toolbox the S, which is to specialize. That's niching. That's specializing in the what it is you want to do, who you want to do it for, and where you want to do it. So that's the S of the S.P.A.R.K.S Blueprint, to specialize. Then we have the P, which is the positioning. And that's all about positioning yourself locally as an expert, making sure that people know that you are the go-to electrician in your area. You are the only one that they should be considering. And we all know that in terms of positioning yourself as an expert, it's easy for us to do it locally. A little harder if you start going outside of into a wide geographical area. But if you're working locally, then it's pretty easy for you to position yourself as an expert, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about inside the toolbox, you won't find other tradesmen doing. So by doing the things that we talk about, by doing the help sheets, doing the blog, doing the videos, all of these things will position you locally as an expert. Then we have the A of the S.P.A.R.K.S, and that's advertising. And that's everything to do with all of your advertising activity, whether that be putting stickers on coins, whether that be dropping leaflets, whether that be going to network meetings, whether it's advertising in community magazines, church magazines, local magazines, or whether it is putting billboards up in your cricket club or your soccer club, whether it's sponsorship for soccer clubs. That's all of that activity. That's all covered under your advertising. Then we have the whole aspect of, once you've advertised and you've attracted people to you, you need to build relationships with them. So your potential customers, you want to turn into customers. And we all know that people buy from those who they like and trust, people that they get to know. So in building relationships, and we work that through in the whole R of the S.P.A.R.K.S, is about building the relationships and getting you to a position where people are happy to trust you and to give you work quite easily. And there's a whole range of activities around building that sort of relationship with the customer. Then of course, once you've got the customer, you need to keep in touch with them, you need to communicate with them, you need to keep them on side so that when they need an electrician in the future, or indeed any other tradesman, when they need a tradesman in the future, they contact you. And that's all about communication, and it's about keeping in touch. You need to be in a position that when one of their friends needs an electrician, your name is on top of their tongue. When one of their relatives needs an electrician, when one of their colleagues at work needs an electrician, your name should be the first name that comes up in the conversation. And that's what this section is all about. It's all about teaching methods of keeping in touch so that you don't piss them off, but your name is constantly there. Because we know that 9 times out of 10, when a relationship ends, when you cash the check and that's the end of it, then people say, oh yeah, I'll recommend you, I'll be happy to recommend you. And the bottom line is, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the line, they've forgotten who you are, they've lost your business card, they don't know anything about you. So it's your responsibility to keep in touch. But we're just quickly running through this, and then we have, of course, the final S, which is systemize. Now, each part of your marketing funnel relates in some way or another to the S.P.A.R.K.S Blueprint. So if we have in the find section of your funnel, we will have things like the, let's have a look. We will have things like advertising. Well, that's how you find people, isn't it? That's how you get people into your business. We'll have positioning, because if you're positioned as an expert, then you will attract people. People will seek you out. So that covers that aspect of the funnel. That's people coming in, getting people in. The area that we're going to look at, based on Matt's query or Matt's concern about how do you do the filtering, how do you do, we've just said it, the filter, is the next step of the funnel. And that's the step we're going to look at in depth in this video, is filtering. So you find and you filter. And of course, in terms of filtering, again, inside the blueprint, in the S.P.A.R.K.S Blueprint, we talk about specializing, which is very important. We'll come back to that in just a second. And we talk about systemizing. And in my view, those areas are the areas that you need to focus on if you want to build proper filters in, so that you're getting the type of work that you want, that's profitable for you, and that you enjoy doing. And we're going to come back to looking at that in a moment. And of course, then the final part of the funnel is to fulfill. So you have found the customer, you filtered out the work you want, then you have to deliver. You have to fulfill the work that you've committed to. You've got to make that customer feel important. You've got to make that customer want to keep coming back to you. You're going to have to deliver on your promises, and that's all about fulfilling. And of course, that is all taken care of again in terms of the R, which is the building of relationships, and the K, which is all about keeping in touch and making sure that they come back to you time and time again. But as we've mentioned, the purpose of this video, what we're going to look at here, is this section of the funnel here. It's where we filter our work. Now, as I said earlier, this isn't a magic cure. There is no way that on day one, when you set up your business, that you are going to be able to do this. Just can't do it, because you need to be at this point where you have lots of stuff coming in here. And in the first days of your business, in the early throes of your business, or even in the early throes of marketing properly, you're not going to have sufficient work coming in here to be discerning, to be able to say, I will pick and choose. But believe me, if you get the marketing right, if you get the type of work that you want starting to come in here, the number, and it is a numbers game, you want lots and lots and lots of stuff coming in here. But just because there's lots coming in, it doesn't mean you have to take everything. It doesn't mean you have to do every single job that comes in. In fact, you don't even have to go and quote for every single job that comes in. But in the early days, you may have to. Okay? So, like I said, it's not a magic pill. You have to work up to this. But when you have sufficient work coming in here, you then need to squeeze these people through so that you are choosing and selecting the type of work that you want to do. And how do we know what we want to do? Well, we go back to the S, which is to specialize. Inside the filtering process, I believe there are 3 steps. And the first step is to specialize. The first step is to know yourself in your own mind. What is it I want to do? What type of work do I want to do? Because when you know the type of work that you want to do, then it's very easy to turn away or reject the type of work that you don't want to do, because you've got a clear picture in your mind. Now, for example, I am happy doing domestic work. I enjoy doing domestic work. That's one area that I specialise in. But I go even further than that because I niche it down even further. I'm happy fault finding. I enjoy fault finding. I find fault finding is something that comes easy to me. And as a result, I'm able to quite happily go out and fault find and charge a premium for it. Why? Because other electricians in my area don't like fault finding. Therefore, quite often, and it's often the way I build relationships with estate agents and letting agents, and indeed some local landlords, quite often what happens is they'll have 1 or 2 guys in who aren't able to solve the problem. They just don't know how to fault find correctly or methodically. They make a bad job of it and they can't repair the fault, they can't find the fault, they can't diagnose the fault. And as a result, they've had 2 or 3 people, as I said, look at it. They eventually get around to calling me. When I go in and I'm able to do the job, I'm able to deliver, I'm able to do it quickly, I can charge a premium for that. You know, I can quite easily charge 60, 70 pounds for like 10 minutes work because I put a minimum charge on it. The bottom line is, if you find something that you enjoy doing, it's easy for you to specialise in it. Now, does it mean you have to turn away everything else? No, it doesn't. Of course you don't. You can do all types of work. But if you know in your head where you want to be doing, what you want to be doing, the type of work that you want to be doing, then it makes it easier to make selections and choices when you have more than you need coming in. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is specialize, and you specialize not only in what you do, but you specialize in who you do it for. So what do we got here? We got what, even, who, and where. Okay, so you specialize in who you want to do it for. So again, you know, if you only want to work with builders, then that makes your decision even easier again, doesn't it? If you only want to work with homeowners who are 50 plus, that makes your decision easy. If you only want to work for homeowners who live in 1930s houses, it makes it easier again. If you want to work for homeowners who are working professionals, so both people in the couple go out to work and they live in a 1930s house and they're happy to leave tradesmen there working away, if that's your choice, then that makes it easier again. Now that's a completely separate lesson. That's all about discovering who your ideal customer is, and there's information about that inside the toolbox. But you need to sit down and work these things out so that when the phone rings, you can make that decision. When the phone rings, it's an easy decision for you. You know, if you've decided I'm never going to work for individual landlords, I'll work for estate agents and letting agents, but I don't want to work for individual landlords, when a landlord calls you and asks you to go and do a job, then it's very easy for you to say no, because it's not what you do. If you've decided that your specialist area is consumer units, and you want to spend your time installing consumer units, but you never want to touch fault finding, you're happy to do other stuff, but you never want to touch fault finding. If the phone rings and somebody says it's a fault finding exercise, then it makes your decision easy, doesn't it? You can easily say, no, it's not what I do, it's not something that I do. And of course there's ways of dealing with that, because just because you don't do it doesn't mean somebody local to you doesn't do it. You know, this is how, again, you can build relationships with other electricians in your area who most people would see as competition, and you should actually see as allies. So, you know, if you don't handle fault finding, if you don't do cooker installs, if you don't do repairs to appliances, then have somebody that you know who does. So when the customer says to you, I need somebody to come and repair an oven, then don't just say, no, I don't deal with that kind of stuff. Have somebody to pass it to. It makes you, again, number one, more professional. Number two, helps create that go-to guy. What you're doing, in effect, is setting yourself up as a gatekeeper. But again, I deviate because I'm going off into trainings in other areas. What we're looking at is working out the specialist areas that you want to cover so that it makes the decision easier when the phone rings. When somebody picks up the phone and calls, if it's not something you do, then it's not something you do. And of course, the final area in specialising is the where. Where do you want to do it? Now, you all know my belief. I believe that you can scribe a circle of 15 to 20 miles around your base of operations. So, for example, if it's your home or your office, you should be able to have a circle scribed around that area, and inside of that area, a 15 to 20 mile area, 15 to 20, you should be able to generate enough work for you to survive, thrive, grow, and enough work of the type of work that you want to do. Why doesn't this happen? It doesn't happen because we don't tend to dominate our local area. We don't tend to dominate our marketing. I don't mean dominate in a very nasty way. I mean in an aggressive marketing way. You know, if you're driving in the morning, if you're getting up in the morning, you're getting into your van and you're driving down the road and you're going 30, 40, 50 miles out of your area for work, and you're driving past other tradesmen, other electricians who are coming into your area, and you're seeing other vans, and we all do, then you're not marketing aggressively enough. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line, because they're mopping up work that you could or you should be doing. If you're marketing aggressively enough, it was your phone that would have rang for that work, not their phone. So again, we need to look at where. So again, that makes it even easier again when you're specialising. When the phone rings and somebody says they're 40 miles away, if you've decided I'm going to dominate this area alone, I'm going to work only in that area, I'm going to make sure this is my manor, then when the phone rings and somebody's 40 miles away, it's very easy for you to say, no, I'm sorry, it's outside of my area. But let me point you in the direction of somebody I know who'll be happy to help you. And it makes your life that much easier in terms of filtering out the type of work. I'll go back and say it again, guys. It's not going to happen from day one. And it's not an easy thing to do mentally and psychologically because you feel you're turning work away. The bottom line is you need to streamline your work so that, number one, you're doing the type of work that you want to do, you're doing the type of work you find easy to do, you're doing it locally to yourself so that you are not traveling miles and miles and miles away, and it's profitable for you. And you need to cover off all of those bases. And when you cover off all of those bases, your life in terms of your business gets a lot easier. And you start to control the business instead of the business controlling you. So instead of having to get in the van and drive 40, 50 miles away to do a quote or to do a small job and then 40 or 50 miles back to home, and wasting all of that time away from your family, away from the hobbies that you have, away from the things that you want to be doing yourself. Instead of doing that, you can be working in a local area, doing the type of work that you want to do for the type of people that you want to work with, and earning a premium for doing it. And it just takes some effort in terms of building that into your business. So that's specialising, and that's one of the first things as far as the filter is concerned. So when's the next stage that you can filter work? It's when you go to do the quote. You know, when you There's a couple of different ways that we do quotes, certainly a couple of different ways that we do quotes. One is we can quote over the phone for work, and you can do that with certain things, and on other occasions you have to go to the site to do it. And if you manage yourself properly and you manage your script properly, at the point where you're agreeing to quote for work on the phone, you can easily filter out some other individuals from this trough of work that you're filling up. You know, when you tell somebody my minimum charge is £65 per hour, and they suck their lip or they say that's too expensive, you've made a filter. You've filtered them. That's it. You know that they're not the customer for you. They know what you charge. End of. Take them off the list. Go on. You don't have to travel. You don't have to do anything. Now, do you have to do this yourself? No. If you're using a call center, if you're using staff in the office, if it's your wife, if it's your daughter, I don't know who's working in the office for you, it could be your son, whatever the case is, if they understand this, if they know that at this point you start to filter people out. So when the phone rings and somebody's saying, oh, I want you to come and quote for some work, there's some details you need to take, don't you? You need to understand where they are, so geography. Well, if it's outside of my area, I'm going to say, no, sorry, it's not an area I cover. If it's an area I don't want to go into, then I have filtered. There's a couple of other things you may need to know. Is it their property or is it a tenanted property? If it's their property and you know that you want to work for homeowners, then that's helpful because now you've filtered, again, they're still in. If they say no, it's a tenanted property, well, you've again filtered, they're out. Again, further questioning will reveal things like the type of work. So, you know, when you question about what is it you actually want doing, and they say, well, we're doing a loft conversion, and we need an electrician to give us a quote for the loft conversion. Well, if new builds or extensions are not the type of work that you want, and not the type of work that you're interested in doing, then you've filtered again. So there are various different things when you're at this point of talking about the quote. Before you ever visit, before you ever do anything, there's certain things that you can do to say, right, filter, 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 am I going to go out and do the quote? Okay, so you've got to the point where you can go out and do the quote, and now again, when you go out to do the quote and you're in front of the person, you have more filters that you can apply. Is it the type of property that you want to work in? Is it the type of individual that you want to work in? Can they afford what you're going to charge? Is it, again, the type of work in the property that you are happy doing, that you want to do? And at any point along this chain, any point along this whole process, you can say no. You see, ingrained in the back of all of our heads, we have this belief that because our phone rang, because this person asked us to come and do a quote or asked us to come and do some work, we have this belief that we have to go and do it. And the bottom line is we do not have to accept every piece of work that comes in. In fact, we're better off not taking every piece of work that comes in, because we will, or we do, end up being a busy fool. Ask me how I know. I've been there, I've done it. You run around, you chase around, chasing every little bit of work. And I did it at times when I was extremely busy. I had loads of work on, but yet every time the phone rang, I have to go, I have to go, I have to go, I have to deal with it, I have to do it, have to do it. You know, working silly hours of a night, going out 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night to go out and do work, finishing up late on jobs, just to please people, just to get things done. And that's what it's about, people pleasing. And that's not what your life is about, that's not what your business is about, that's not what your family is about. You know, you have to stop pleasing other people and start pleasing yourself. You have to stop thinking that you have to take every single piece of work, because you don't. You don't. Maybe in the early stages you do. Maybe in the early stages when the phone rings, you're glad it rings because you need that money. Maybe you're glad to travel 40, 50, 60 miles to get a £100 check because you need the work when you're starting out. But when you get your marketing right, when you've got people coming into your funnel, change your mentality, change how you see it, change how you think about it, and start selecting the work you want to do. And at every single point along the chain, you have the ability to say no. At every single point, you have the not only the ability, you have the right, you have the responsibility to say no at a point when you think this is not a job for you. You know, because there's always somebody out there who'll be prepared to do it. There's always somebody who will do the job. But you don't need to be that somebody. You don't need to mop up every little bit of work that's out there. Yes, you need lots and lots and lots of people calling you. Yes, you need lots and lots and lots of work coming into that funnel. But if you market yourself properly, if you price yourself properly, you don't need lots and lots and lots of work coming out the other end. You need to filter that so that you can actually have the quality of work that you want, earning the money that you want, working the hours that you want, doing the type of work that you want to do, that you're happy to do. So that's quoting. Don't be afraid to say no, guys. And then the third step along the way, of course, the third step in the funnel is at the acceptance of the quote. You know, this is another opportunity where you can say no. Because with most of us, certainly I would hope most of you now are collecting deposits before you engage in any work at all. And right up to that point, right up to the point, you know, when the person calls you, you've done the quote, you've been out, you've paid a visit, you've had a look, and the person says to you, yes, we'd like you to go ahead with the work. At any point, if you have a niggle in the back of your head, if something better, more profitable has come in for you, then the onus is on you to say, I'm sorry, appreciate the fact that you chose us, but the diary is full at the moment. We're not able to accommodate. You know, at any point that you say no, guys, do it with humility, do it nicely. Don't turn people away. Don't, when I say turn them away, don't turn them away in such a way that you're burning bridges. Don't just refuse to answer the phone, refuse to return emails, say I don't want your work, things like that. You know, find ways and methods of talking to your customers in such a way that you explain to them. You know, right up to the point of taking the deposit. Because once you've taken the deposit, as far as I'm concerned, then you've began a commitment. So once you take that deposit, then the date goes in the diary, then the job gets done. But up to that point of taking your deposit, you have every right, and as I said, a responsibility at that point to say no. But do it in an honourable way. Do it in such a way that you don't burn bridges. If you can point the customer in the direction of somebody else who's capable of doing the work to the standard that you know the customer deserves, then do that. But just explain to them, you know, I'm really sorry, when I came and saw you, then, you know, the 15th of March was available. However, that date has now been taken. I'm going to be busy now for the next 3 to 4 months. I'd be happy to point you in the direction of David down the road, who I know and trust because I've worked with him, and I'm quite happy for him to take on this project if you'd like him to do. You know, and if you know David well enough, then maybe David's already understands your pricing system, and you don't have to go through the whole quote system again, and he's happy to operate based on the pricing that you've done. I don't know. That's the logistics you work out with your guys. I certainly know that with one of my guys locally, and his name happens to be David, but with one of my guys locally, he understands my pricing, he understands how I operate, and if I get to a point down the line with a quote that I don't take on for whatever reason, and we had that whole incident carry on while I was out with my hand, well, after the operation, where I had previously done quotes and people were coming back while I was convalescing, while I was recovering, people were coming back and saying, yeah, we want to go ahead. And of course I wasn't in a position to go ahead, and I knew that coming back in, I would have a backlog of work as well, but I was happy to pass it over to David. And David was happy to accept it at the price I had quoted, because he knows how I work. So these are all very good reasons for building relationships with other electricians. But again, I deviate. So we're looking at the acceptance. At any point down the line, at any point along this whole process, you can say no to a job. But as I said, it's not easy. It's not going to happen immediately. You need to build in these systems. You need to get to a point where you know your market, you specialize in what it is you're going to do, who you're going to do it for, where you are going to do it. There's a filter. That is a filter. That will help you decide the type of work that you want to take. And that will help you at any point along the line, when the phone rings and somebody's asking for a quote, it helps you then to be able to say, yes, ticks that box, ticks that box, tick that box, it's worth going out and doing a quote for. Doesn't tick that box, doesn't tick that box, doesn't tick that box, sorry, I'm not interested. And of course you don't say, sorry, I'm not interested. You say, I'm sorry, that's not the type of thing we do. Can I introduce you to David? Sorry, it's not the area we cover. Let me introduce you to David, or whoever it is that you use. So these are the filters that you need to build into your business. And if you're not the person answering the phone, if you're not the person who is booking your visits and your quotes, then make sure that the person who is doing it for you knows and understands how you filter your work. But the bottom line is, guys, you need to put some effort into this. And even though you're not applying it in the early stages, even though when you're just getting your marketing pillars working and you're getting stuff coming into the business, do sit down and work these things out, so that when you get busy enough, when you get enough coming in, when you get more than enough coming in, you already have your filters in place and you can say no, you can select, you can turn people away, you can make sure that you don't have to turn off, and you shouldn't turn off any of your marketing pillars. And I'll say that again, any of your marketing pillars that are working. If a marketing pillar is not working, guys, turn it off. And you should know it's not working if you're using your tracking numbers correctly. But if a marketing pillar is not working for you, turn it off, get rid of it, don't do it, don't waste money on it. Concentrate on the ones that do work for you. Put more effort into the ones that do work for you. But if you have a marketing pillar that's working for you, whether it is your community magazine, whether it's your local parish or church magazines, whether it's the billboards at the snooker club, the golf club, it could be a snooker club, whether it's your networking meetings, if a marketing pillar is working for you, never turn it off because you are getting too busy. Start to apply filters, start to work on the what, the who, the where, and you also have the option of increasing your prices. You know, even if you've done all of this, if you've got all of this off to pat and you're still getting too busy and you're still getting too much work coming in, well, hooray you, put your prices up. You know, at the end of the day, some people will still use you, and some people, that will filter them out. By putting an extra £10 an hour on, an extra £5 an hour on, whatever it is that you want to put an extra price, whether it's a project, and where you would normally charge £500, charge £700. If it's hourly rate, then increase the hourly rate. But put the price up, and people will deselect themselves. You know, so again, when you get to this part of the job, if you think to yourself, yeah, it's the type of job that I like to do, they seem like nice people, but it's 40 miles away from where I actually want to be working, then put the price up. Put the price up, because if they choose you, then it makes it worth your while. Put an extra couple of quid on the job to make it worth your while to step out of your filters. You know, same thing. If it's not exactly what you do, but you quite like the people, and it's quite local to where you operate and you work, but it's not quite what you do, put the price up. Put more money on it, because this is not my typical type of work, but I'll do it for you. Put the price up. Make it worth your while to get the job. You know, there are, if you have lots and lots and lots of work coming in, there are people who will pay that extra amount just to have you. Well, wouldn't it be far better doing less work and getting more money for it than trying to satisfy every single job out there? And by the same token, passing work on to other people, so building better relationships in the area, relationships with other tradesmen, other electricians who will help you in your business, one way or another, whether it's covering you for holidays, whether it's passing you projects that they're not able to handle. You know, they may, in my case, Dave doesn't like doing fault finding. He gets a fault finding job, it's passed on to me. So it's worth building those relationships. So that, guys, is the reason and the why and the how that you do not turn off your marketing pillars. When they're working, keep them working. Keep the work coming in. And the key thing is, your spending up here must be a sight less than what you're making out of down here. So of course, if you've got loads and loads and loads of work coming in, but you're spending thousands and thousands up here, but you're only making hundreds down here, then you're doing something wrong. You know, for every pound you put in here, every single pound you put in here, you should be taking a minimum of £5 out down here. And that doesn't mean you do every single job that comes in. It means you pick the jobs, you cherry pick the work that you want to do, for who you want to do it and where you want to do it. So I hope that answers the whole question of why I believe you do not turn off your marketing pillar. Until the next time, continue to learn and grow, and I'll see you in the next video.